Hey, this is Antminer Repair, and tonight we're going to be looking at this T17 hashboard. It's from China, and there's a particular, maybe a standard operating procedure on how they repair these boards. I'm not really in favor of it because when it comes time to work on the board, it's very difficult. So let me give you some background. This board, I can tell, has been run hot. It no longer has heat sinks that are easy to solder on them, so they stick this sticky stuff on and thermal paste and let it go. But in the climate in North America, at least the heat during the summer, maybe this miner was, it was okay because it's always cool. This miner starts to overheat and then it just degrades from there. So if you like this kind of content, please subscribe. Most people that watch these videos don't subscribe, and it really helps me to subscribe. It helps me keep producing these. Also, there's a bell over there that you can hit that notifies you when I put out a new video, because I do all things repair, and I come across some interesting things like this one I'm going to share to you. And also, don't forget, if you're interested in getting stuff repaired and starting to learn how to repair, or even have questions about your hashboard or a miner, come to our Discord channel, join it. You go to the link in the description, and it'll take you to welcome, and then you go click on the rules, and there's a green checkbox at the bottom. Once you click that, everything will be available to you. You can talk to a bunch of very skilled people that are doing this. Some have businesses doing this, some run farms. It's a great resource for everybody, and they're friendly, and they'll try to help as best you can. Okay. So let's get started. I had to pull this thing out of the board and a heat sink was off of it. And it's like, that's funny. And I looked at the chip, and I've already repaired it, unfortunately. And it's like, oh my gosh, you can't even do a heat sink on this. There's no copper left on the chip. So one of the problems also is, I'm going to tilt this up and make sure I can do this. If you look down here, and let me see if I can point this. This is an odd angle for me. You can kind of see the white here, the white here, the white here. That's like this white plastic garbage that they use to glue the chip down. So these chips have been taken off, and because they're so difficult to solder back on, they put thermal paste and they put these white pads on either side. And a lot of times these white pads have been baked on so much that it's difficult to get them off without ripping the resistors off. So once you do this, it's like really difficult to maintain the board and to fix it. So I have one on the other side that just came loose and says, shoot, why don't I do a video? So if you just kind of run along, this guy is already coming loose. He didn't stick very good. So this particular board wasn't so bad because they only put dots. And this person who did this, instead of putting the dots where the resistor go, put a dots across the copper, cross. So although this didn't work, geez, it looked like this chip got hot. Look at the smoke there. Something got hot there. But I'm going to focus in on this in a microscope, and we can take a look at this. A lot of times you'll see big pads right where the resistor is on either side of the chip, and they stick them on like that because lengthwise, that's how you do the chip. And they're a mess to clean up. The thermal paste is messy, and this plastic's messy. This will be nicer to clean up on this one. All of these guys right here look like they're stuck over the resistor. So whoever did these, they did it different than these. So you have a couple choices after you look at this chip and it looks like it doesn't do solder. Use a system like this. I don't think it keeps it as cold. I don't think thermal paste with this heat works as well. That's just my opinion. You guys might have done something else, but the other thing you can do is thermal glue. And I've got some thermal glue. Let me see. I bought some of this stuff. It has great instructions. I'm gonna look it up. It does have a number here. So I bought this just to try to solve this. I have not used it. It may work. I started researching liquid metal, saying, hey, if I could put some metal down and it's stuck and then I can solder to the metal, I can get a heat sink on it. That wouldn't work because I guess heat kills off the epoxy, or the epoxy is more or less permanent that holds that metal stuff in. And you know, the whole goal of this is you want to be able to put a heat sink on, take it off. It has to conduct electricity so that you can test it without pulling it apart. So there's all sorts of things going on here. This is a pretty drastic fix, I think. So actually, these guys here had the same problem than this. And I think I discovered a way to put solder on them. So I'm going to share that with you tonight. There's some hazards to it, but your choice is replace the chip and put a good heat sink on it, or thermal glue, and the next time you need to, if it's permanent, you can remove the chip and replace the chip next time, which might be an option. I was going to do that, is to say, look, I'll put the heat sink on this time, but when I need to take it off next time, I'll just bring the chip off too. The problem is, if I need to replace this chip, or I have this chip bad, I have to get to this chip to make sure it's not these guys or these guys. So once you've kind of permanently affixed one of these heat sinks and you have a problem next door, it causes a much bigger mess later. So I'm kind of in the business, as I work on these hashboards, make them better and better and more solid, and get rid of the problems slowly but surely, and bring them back to their former glory. All right. So you might ask, hey, on the T9, do you have that black paste from Zeus? You know, I think I tried one on this. I'm not sure I know how to use it. I have a jug of it, or a jar of it, in my freezer or my fridge. The problem is, it may work. I just don't think it's strong enough to hold these dudes, but it might be. I think these are, so I've got a S9 over here. Well, I'm not going to drag it out from all my stuff over here, but the S9 heat sinks are about this size, most all of them, and they're made out of a lighter aluminum. You can't even solder them, I don't think. But these guys are pretty beefy, so I don't know if it would work. It might. There's a reason why they didn't use it and soldered it. These guys generate a little more heat. Well, the S9's a hot system, different chips though, okay? That glue might sit on the top of that chip. So the answer to that is it might. I'm not going to go there. I don't want to buy the paste. I don't want to clean up the mess. So I'm not going to do it. I'm looking for a solderable solution. I just kind of decided that. All right, so let's switch cameras and take a look at what this chip looks like. And we're going to clean it up, and I'm going to show you the method I use and kind of explain how I got solder on there. I just started using it. We'll see how it works. I think it's pretty good. It's probably not the best as a new chip, but just a second, I'm going to line up the camera and switch the video source. Give you a nice view of the heatsink there. Where is that chip? Right. Ooh, look at that mess. Okay, I'm going to switch the camera. Hang on. There is that chip. You can see they pasted all around it. I suppose you could say it's not going to get solder balls over here if it's covered with paste, and that might be true. I don't think solder balls can infiltrate it. Probably doesn't hurt anything. And there's the sticky. Can you imagine a big wad of this stuff all around these resistors? It's very sticky. It's very difficult to get off. And you have to pry it very easy. And sometimes you just have to dig it off around here. It's really a pain. These aren't so bad. I think I can probably take this screwdriver edge and pop one off. Let's see. It really sticks. I mean, it's a good adhesive. So that one popped off. Kind of leaves a little residue. Let me take this one off. Without breaking the rest of the board. Okay. Like I said, this one's much nicer than these big heat sinks I'm going to have. So then the next thing to do is, I'm flipping the board around, is to get rid of the thermal paste, and it makes a big mess too. So I'm going to take all that off, all that wonderful thermal paste. And we'll find out the reason why they did this as soon as we get this off. I just try to get as much of it off as I can. And try to be able to see the pins on the chips as much as I can. Sometimes you can't. Just using alcohol and a Q-tip. Really clean that up. Looks like the chip has a little chip out of it, doesn't it? So that's not so good. Might have some problems with this chip too. I have in the past had those. It's not definitely going to cause a problem. I'll need to test this. This may be a candidate for repair soon. Get a different Q-tip now. Just keep kind of digging around and trying to get down to where you can see some stuff. I go ahead and clean up the sides if I can. Get that stuff loose. Kind of gets baked on. Here. And then just real easy. You don't want to press on the solder, definitely, but just looks like there are some solder balls around there. Isn't that interesting? You see that one there and that one there, and so there is some loose solder in this mess. Unless it was on my Q-tip, I don't think so. So that's unfortunate. This chip has a big pock mark in it, but probably not deep enough. I'm hoping it's not deep enough to affect the operation of the chip. Don't know what it's going to do when I solder. I think solder even sticks to this stuff. It's like a metal. The silicon's kind of like a metal. So we'll touch that up. That might be a good place to hang. But here's the point of the video that I want to work with you on. So I've kind of cleaned that stuff off. You always, of course, want to check your resistors. I got this gray mess over here, so we can get it out of here. Stuff is just all over the place. It makes a mess. See, that would be here. I think we need thermal conducting. It might even be conductive paste, which isn't good, but I don't think so. I think it's just thermal. So we can get some of that out of there. All right. Any more big clumps? Let's see here, my pins, my favorite pins. Actually, maybe the tweezers as a point might work. Am I missing? No, I'm not missing that. Let's dig this stuff out. You even wipe it off and it sticks on there. I mean, it's pretty good stuff for what it's meant for, I think. I'm just not sure it's meant for the harsh climate here. Okay, I'm gonna stop at that. All right, I want you to notice, usually when people try to solder something on the chip, the first place they put the solder is gonna be right here. I mean, when you try to do it, I mean, sometimes I use solder paste. I'll put a little dab there and I'll heat it up and it'll stick to the chip there. And then when you lay the chip down, it kind of spreads it out. But if you notice, this metal, they used to be copper. You can kind of see some traces up there. This metal is way different than this metal. This is like a stainless steel. So it looks like to me that maybe the core of the chip is in here. I don't know. Maybe these are traffic. Maybe these are wiring. I'm not sure. But this part is where if you try to solder it, the solder is just going to ball up and you can scoot it over. There is no solder that's going to stick on there with perhaps maybe there, that section. However, right now, if I tried soldering any of it, it will not stick. But what I discovered is if I can work with this metal, this metal, this metal, and maybe leave a dab of solder here and lay the chip down, that I've got a pretty good heat sink connection. So really what I'm going to do is, that's why I had this little screwdriver. I'm going to go around and I'm just going to scrape on this dude and just kind of score it. I'm going to score it up. You see that? So getting all the garbage off that the solder won't stick with, and I'm going to score it up. I'm just going to scrape it. You want to be careful not to do it too much. You don't want to dig in the top of the chip. I can't really scrape the stainless on that. That's really, really strong metal. But I can do just this is going to clean it up, especially around those words. If I can get up here a little bit better. Just kind of score it up without hurting the chip too much. I'm going to clean that off. Of course, I put my alcohol away. I do that as a bad habit. You just clean this dude off. Now, you guys with other miners that don't have solderable things, you don't have this problem. You probably just replace the chip if it's busted. I actually take, it's a little bit much, but I actually take my buck knife and see if I can score it up some more. I don't want to hurt anything underneath. I just want to mark up the surface. Yeah, like that. Okay. So that's a little too much probably. But just like that. Okay. So now one last clean. And when you clean this for the last time and wipe it off, I mean, when you run your finger on it, you can tell there is nothing on there. There's no oil or anything. I'll probably just put some on, but let's make sure I didn't. Okay. I mean, that is, look at that shine. Look at it reflect. That is one clean chip. As the barbecue pit boys would say, it looks real good. So it's a YouTube channel I watch on how to smoke meat. So real good. So let's take this now. I think, pretend that chip isn't in there. I think solder is going to stick to that, but I can get solder to stick pretty good there, there, and there. And then what I'm going to do is leave a spot of solder here so that when the heat sink sits down on it, it melts the solder and adheres to the outside, but also touches the stainless steel with the heat sink, and at least it's touching. There might be a gap in there, but at least it's touching. So that's the plan here, and see if I can get the heat sink to stay. The other problem is I got, see if I can get this, there's a lot of this paste on this heat sink, so we need to clean off the heat sink too. So I'm going to do that right now. Get all the thermal paste off of it and clean it up. Get the plastic off of it because I'm going to heat it up. Just make sure everything's clean. Now, I'm still looking at that burnt spot. I don't think that chip fried, but where was that? That was either, I'm looking at it, see if I can show you. I don't know if that's dirt or a burn spot. It just right out. So if we had this like this or like this, so it's either up here or it's back there that something happened. Let's have a look. So we've got caps up there. Of course, they look beat up, but they always do. Okay, looks a little fried. This chip wasn't giving me any warnings before, so yeah, I mean, everything looks okay. From what I can tell, there's no huge like solder balls. These poor resistors, these things, there's nothing left of them, but if you check the resistance, they're working. They're just tiny things and they just get beat up. All right, still clean. All right, so what I'm gonna do, I've got some, I have, it's actually some wire solder. It's a little bit too big. It's 0.40. See how big it is? I need to get some 0.02, 0.020. But the solder is the same solder that you use to put the heat sinks on. It's about 130-degree melting. So I'm going to heat up my soldering iron. I have it at 297, probably 300 degrees. You never want to keep that soldering iron on that chip very long, though. It's easy to overheat the chip and just hose it. So I'm going to attempt to put solder on it, get it to stick to the edges, maybe put a drop in the middle, and I'm good. Then I'm going to heat up a heat sink and let the heat sink do the work for me. Hopefully that will work. It's been working the last couple. A little sloppy. It's not nice and clean like you'd always want. But so I add my flux here and try to get it to clean anything I possibly can that it's going to grab on. So I'm just, and it won't stick there, but it might stick there. So hopefully this one will help me out there. All right. So I've got my solder. I'm going to put just a little bit on the tip. I'm going to try to get some to stick over here. Yeah, see, it finds a place to stick on the edge over there. That's probably stuck on there. So I'm going to get a little more on here. Just run it along here. Just got to heat it up to where it wants to stick on there. I think that's the place. Like I said, it looks really messy. But if you can get it to stick. Now, let's do this. Put a drop there. Boy, it's sure sticking up, but that's what it is. So that's going to fill in the area that you can't solder, but these guys are going to spread out probably. Let's see if I can put one more touch up here. You notice I'm not staying on the chip that long. I'm just trying to leave that solder behind. There, I left it. Okay, let's analyze what we've done. Looks like it's no brainer, but let me tell you, here's what people see when they do this. Check out this big piece of solder I put in the middle. Nothing stuck, it just slides. And that's what people are seeing. It's like, well, how am I gonna solder that? Now I'm gonna leave this dude right in the middle, because when the heat sink goes down, it's gonna melt it, it's gonna help fill in the gap. But these guys, nothing's moving these guys. So I'm gonna put the chip on here, and I'm gonna use, hopefully the solder will spread out, and I'm gonna make sure it's fluxed. So I can put the heat sink all around, but I'm gonna fill it in by that. I do heat this heat sink with about 400-degree air and get it nice and hot and drop it. Especially, this is one of those smaller ones you guys can't see, but it's not the larger set of the heat sinks, it's the smaller. So basically I've done what I'm gonna do there. That's a big chunk of solder in the middle, probably way too much, but I'm just gonna do this and it should work. So I've got my heat sink cleaned up. Pretty good, yeah? So I'm gonna get my air gun and let's do this. You're not gonna see me heat it, but I'm gonna heat it and then I'm gonna drop it in there. So let me get this thing a-cooking. Smoke the rest of the plastic off this dude. That's weird how that big solder ball just doesn't stick, because I think it's stainless steel. And it takes special, I even looked at aluminum solder for stainless steel, but it's such high temperature, you can't use it on a chip. So glad to hear your comments on other things you guys know about that you might want to try. I might try it out. This is gonna work, I think. This is gonna stick that heat sink down and it's gonna be in contact, but it's pretty kludgy, pretty sketchy. So I do want to get my heat sink hot enough to melt that big blob of solder, so that's what I'm working on. Probably should have refreshed my flux a little bit, but it'll burn it off. Okay, so I think I got this guy probably pretty hot. Hopefully I can do this under the microscope at an angle. I'm gonna try. Here goes. It's a lot of solder to melt. I'm gonna give it a little more heat here. Make sure it has enough to do what it needs to do. I think it's stuck. Yeah, I don't see it dropping anymore, so let's just let that sit, cool off. Now, I believe this is better than sticking stuff in thermal paste. I could be wrong. Let me bring that back. Did I not even show that? So it's, oh, I put the heat sink on right over you. Okay. It's right here, this guy. So I let him cool off quite a bit. The only thing I'm a little concerned about is that amount of solder I use goes over the chip and clogs up the thing, but that dude is on there. So I'll switch video cameras. Yeah, let me move him out of the way. And so, which one is it? That one right there, I think. One of these two, this one. There's nothing taking that off. So it's on the heat sink. How good of a cooling job it'll do, I still have to find out. But I sure like that better. I can take it back off. I can redo it again. At least there's a process to attach it now. I've got a whole board over here that I just had to take all the stickers off. It took me forever. And I haven't placed it back in service yet. In fact, maybe that was this board. No, that's not the board we were working on before on video. So anyway, I'm gonna leave these right now unless I need to. I think at some point it gave me ASIC 12 was off, so I might be getting into here, but I'm gonna use the same, I will use the same technique for that. So I hope that helps for you guys who have those copper top chips that don't have, someone on the Discord forum said I could just put it back on. I'm not sure what I would like to see that. I think what they were referring to is maybe on the heat sink, the film comes off with it and they were able to remove the film and put it back on the chip and solder it, I guess, or heat it back on. These things are long since gone and I just don't think they're there. So welcome any comments on either Discord or on YouTube. We can talk about this. If you got some great stuff to put in there that does it, that's as good as soldering, I'll listen to you. I'll listen to you anyway. So thank you for watching. Have a great day and great repairing your miners.